But I think more fundamentally, backing up long before you get into that job, doing as much research and sort of, as we say, in the finance world, due diligence about the companies that you're going to go to work for. Because let me tell you, nowadays, every company, virtually every company, talks about work-life balance. And a lot of it is simply, I'm going to use a technical term now, bullshit. Okay.
Welcome to We Need to Talk, where we try to figure out how to find fulfillment in life and reduce dissatisfaction. Listen to this full episode if you'd like to hear some tips on finding a work-life balance nowadays and how to survive and deal with an unhealthy, potentially toxic corporate culture. So enjoy the episode and don't forget to subscribe. Let's go.
The question is indeed, how does one, like really on a practical level, balance both indeed like work life, but perhaps more importantly, also work family life.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting, Nick, that you'd asked this question, because I've been doing in October, so last month, and already this first week in November, I've been doing quite a bit more speaking on these subjects. And so I've been getting a lot of emails, right, from students with this very same question, and it really is, this whole question of work-life balance. It really is hard when you're young, right? Because when you finish university, whether you're going to go out into the work world or immediately you're going to go and get a graduate degree and then get whatever sequence, you get into the work world and you sign on with a company, right? And you want them to think that you're a good worker, right? You want them to like you and to see your potential and all these things. And so you tend to, almost all people tend to make a mistake. I mean, I certainly did. So I can counsel, don't make the same mistake that I did, of equating number of hours at work with being a hard worker or being an effective worker, being a productive worker, right? That's not what it means, right? And I oftentimes challenge students when I'm talking more specifically about this, as I will right now, saying, okay, if you've been in a work environment already in your life, maybe an internship, or even if you've been working full time already, think about those first weeks on the job, or those first months on the job, when you were staying until 7 o'clock at night, or 8 o'clock at night, or 9 o'clock at night. And ask yourself, how much did I really get done? How effective was I really at the end of the day? Because, human beings are human beings. Everyone gets tired at the end of the day. And if people are really honest, they're going to say, well, truth is, I didn't get that much done. I was kind of surfing the net and maybe writing some stuff down, or maybe looking at some reports, but there wasn't really much contribution. And so it's really you really have to be honest about these kinds of things, first of all, so to ask that question. But I think more fundamentally, backing up long before you get into that job, doing as much research and sort of, as we say, in the finance world, due diligence about the companies that you're going to go to work for. Because let me tell you, nowadays, virtually every company, talks about work-life balance. And a lot of it is simply, I'm going to use a technical term now, bullshit. Okay. And what that means is that it's hypocrisy. And to me, Nick and Henry, there is no greater sin than hypocrisy. It is at the top of the list. It's worse than anything else. Being a hypocrite is the last thing that you. And when I say that, I'm talking about. I mean, think about it as a perfect example. And I hate to pick on accounting firms, but they're the best at this. Every one of the big accounting firms, Ernst and Young and KPMG, all of them. When they're trying to recruit incoming accountants, they say, oh, yeah, we believe in work-life balance. And then the kid gets in the job and she's working 80 hours a week. And she says, where's the balance? And then it's even worse than that. And I know this from experience because my son fell into this trap. When they think about work-life balance, oftentimes they define as work-life balance as at 10 o'clock at night, they all go out for drinks. Well, what if you don't drink? Or what if you'd rather go to the fitness center? Then all of a sudden you're thought of as being, not a team player. Oh, it's just crazy. That's not. So you've got to do the research, and you can do the research, and you still may not get it right. Okay. You go into the company and all of a sudden there's no work-life balance. Well, then it's time to vote with your feet. if you catch what I mean. And that's always my, that's at the top of my career advice for anything. When you're not happy with what you're doing, you need to change. Just like me, I was not happy being a geography lecturer. So what did I do? I changed. Toward the end of my career, I couldn't say that I was not happy working in a corporate job at age 55, but I had an opportunity to change and to take an early retirement and do these things that I'm doing now. Change until you get it right. Okay. So I think that Nick, the sort of work-life balance and the work. So the life part over here, you asked about family, and those things are really, really important too, right? And but to me, it's sort of, I would rather that when you were away from work, even in that environment of away from work, that there was some balance, that you had time for family, if you already had a partner, if you already had children, or you were still very close to your mom and dad or your brothers and sisters or whoever, or you were super close to friends, you had a huge friend network or whatever, that you would have time for them, but then you would also have time for physical fitness or hobbies, or getting better playing the guitar or singing in a choir, especially doing volunteer work and giving back to the community. So yeah, but so I think that nowadays, and let me back up. I think that one of the reasons for all this hypocrisy nowadays is that these big companies, whether they're an accounting firm or a manufacturer, a bank, or whoever, a retailer, whoever it is, some consultant, some smarty pants from McKinsey and Company has come to visit them and said, "Oh, come to visit their HR department," and said, "Oh, guess what? Young people today are not as focused on work as they were, when you were young." And so everybody's going, "Oh, okay, right?" And so they put out these brochures that say we believe in work-life balance, when in fact they don't. Because organizational culture, right, which includes like what the work environment expectation is very slow to change. Ugh.
It's something sprung to my mind when you were talking about the first few weeks of joining a company, and then you reflect on how many hours did you put in. I did an internship at a bank, and there was this prevalent theme of needing to present to your colleagues how long you're at the office and how much work you're putting in. So, for example, one guy gave me sort of indirectly advice that he would come into the office, turn on his laptop, and put his sort of jacket down. So he's been there. Then he would go downstairs into sort of the locker rooms and shower. So it would appear as if he clocked in sort of like half an hour earlier, just to sort of, but like, isn't that a bit unhealthy, that sort of that atmosphere of needing to sort of depict this sort of facade of hard work, and I don't know how that was at American Airlines for yourself, or whether that's quite prevalent in most corporations. How do you deal with that, for example? Because I mean, if everybody's expecting it, you kind of need to follow suit in a way.
Well, that's exactly, and that's one of the, you're exactly right, Henry. And that's one of the things that makes this whole question so challenging when you're in your 20s or early 30s and you're starting out in the work life, is that you arrive in a new place and you don't know the company. You're excited to be there, you're tickled to have the job, this is great, and as soon as you arrive, you start picking up cues on culture, right? In the same way, I have sometimes likened it to an anthropologist arriving in some remote island for the very first time and assuming that they didn't eat her. He is starting to pick up these cues about how do people behave, and they're taking notes about all of these different things. And so are we in the work environment, and we are falling into the tribe. Just like the anthropologist is looking at the tribe, we are falling into the Deutsche Bank tribe, or the HSBC tribe, or the whatever tribe, the Volkswagen tribe, or whatever tribe it is. We're falling into the tribe, and we're getting these cues where we're looking at these people and we're saying, well, that person is successful, and so I'm going to be just like him or her. And no one is ever pushing back, right? No one is ever saying, is this right? Right. And so, you either find a way to make peace with that, and that's possible. I mean, there are a lot of people. I mean, look at I to bring it back to your question about what was it like at American Airlines. I mean, when I arrived there, it was a very hardworking culture. It was not a bullshit hardworking culture like, oh, I'm going to drape my jacket over my chair and turn on my computer so it looks like I'm there. No, it was genuinely people spent long hours there, right? They just did, right? But but I said to my family when I took the job, because I had just come out of an environment where I had been working a lot on weekends at the previous job, the previous airline. I said, I'm not going to work Saturdays and Sundays. There's a lot of people that go into the office. I'm going to get my work done Monday through Friday. Now, mind you, I spent a lot of time Monday through Friday. It was basically almost a 12-hour day, but I didn't complain because I got home at a reasonable time. Maybe later than I should have, but and I've always been an early riser, so that wasn't a problem. But I mean, people, so you need to kind of make some kind of. So I made kind of a compromise, right? I made kind of a little bit of this and a little bit of that to some place where it really worked. But I also came to understand that if I left the office at a reasonable time, not 9 o'clock, but 6 o'clock. I had sometimes a very long commute on the way home because I drove and there was traffic. I could think on the way home. If I wasn't listening to the radio, I could think and I could have some good ideas. I think the mistake that people often make is that they assume that the only place that they can think big ideas about work is at work, right? But I had all kinds of, and that's why sometimes leaving early is a good thing because, suppose you left an hour early and you had by the time you got home, you had a half hour to go run on a treadmill or go ride a bike. And I find it's one of the reasons why I'm a big endorser of physical fitness because I'm always thinking when I'm riding my bike, right? Some of the best ideas that I had in my long career, I would get when I'd be riding my bike, right? And I still have that. I'm still thinking about stuff when I'm out riding my bike or the fitness bike that's sitting right next to me here if it's raining outside. So I think that people fall into these funny traps where they get in, and then what happens, of course, is that they get sort of sucked into the tribe, and they start to get these cues that they're belonging to the tribe. They're getting feedback that they're belonging to the tribe. Their boss tells them they're doing a good job, or their peers tell them, we really like you, or whatever it is, and they start to, they are accepting more and more of the of these ways that they just inherently know are wrong, right? And they don't, and then and so it's like incremental. I think it's an incremental descent, if you will, down into the things that are negative. It's with the English phrase "death by 1,000 cuts" or whatever.
And kind of relating to this sort of a incremental sort of shattering of, I don't know if one could say one's integrity or so, but another thing I experienced at this company was this idea that in order to get promoted, you need to be seen. You need to sort of trumpet your work, your accomplishments in order to be observed by those people who call the shots, who will decide whether you get promoted or not. And it's sort of this idea, you need to deliver quality to those people, but those people who are not calling the shots, you can sort of disregard them a little bit. Now, I think this idea of needing to broadcast your achievements goes against this concept of the humble, quiet, hard worker, which is quite a healthy idea, I think. Is this environment then a toxic one, or should one just avoid it altogether? Or what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a great question, and really, I mean, uh, so many people sort of go down that path because again they've gotten cues from the environment, right? They've gotten cues from seeing people who have succeeded, or they've gotten cues from people who have been at the company for a couple of years and have told them, look, if you want to get ahead, you've got to do this, you've got to put on this, be seen kind of thing. I got to tell you, I never did that. I never did that, right? And maybe it was because I had enough sort of I had a sense of an intrinsic sense of self worth, or a certain level of confidence where I didn't feel I had to do that, because there was some of that. There was a lot of that kind of gaming that went on in a big environment. But I also, at the same time that I saw people, and so I'm not going to say that's not a path forward, because I saw plenty of people that did that and were able to advance their careers and move up the hierarchy. But I also saw a lot of people that were like me, that just said, I'm gonna do quality work. I'm going to make sure that if I don't get recognized for the quality work, I may gently say, it'd be good if there was a bit of recognition here, or that sort of thing. Those kinds of things. Now, one thing that I think is very useful, that we might sort of introduce here while we're talking about this sort of thing, is one of the reasons why I didn't feel like I didn't have to do this, here I am, Hollywood agent kind of approach, was not just that I had sort of a sense of inner confidence, but I also had some really good mentors.